Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining the RC West Oversight Committee meeting. This is Christina Osborne with ISO Stakeholder Affairs. I'm going to be facilitating the meeting. Just to let you know that we are recording the meeting and we'll make it available out on the RC West page on ISO's website. So look for that by the end of this week. Also on that page, you'll find the presentation that we'll be reviewing today. So we do have Michelle Cathcart, who is currently the chair of the committee, on the phone, and she's going to start us off by doing roll call. And then we do have a decisional item today. We are going to be electing the new chair and vice chair of the committee. April Gordon will be joining us from ISO Finance, and she'll be providing an update. We also have Tim Beach, Michael Martin, Rachel Lucas, and Ginger Quintavala from ISO. They're going to provide the RC West operations update, including COVID-19, what's happening there, updated procedures. We'll go over the RC metrics, and then Ginger's going to talk about the CIDI and issue resolution progress. And then we kind of changed the format a little bit. We're also going to be doing regularly these working group meeting updates, and so we have the liaisons for each of those working groups. We have Tim Beach, Dee Sabaki, Tricia Johnstone, and Ankit Mishra, who will be providing those updates. And then at the end, we will have time to take public comments, so we'll open it up at that time, and I'll instruct you how to enter the queue at that time. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Michelle. Just before I turn it over to you, Michelle, just a quick reminder, if you're on the phone and you're a member, if you're on the participant line, just a reminder to call into the speaker line because we are going to be taking roll. So anyway, I'll turn it over to you, Michelle. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so we will go ahead and start the roll call. So do we have Arizona Electric Power Co-op? Avista? Avangrid?
Hello, Michelle. Kip Blair is on for Avangrid.
Thanks, Kit. ATF? Balancing Authority of Northern California? I'm on for BPA. CalISO BA?
Yes, John Phipps is here.
Thanks, John. Sonase? Chelan? Douglas? Grant? Grid Force?
Yeah, sorry, Michelle, I couldn't get off mute. This is Leroy Patterson Grant.
Thanks, Leroy. Grid Force? Hetchy? Idaho Power?
Ben
Kathy
Brandt.
Anderson.
Thanks, Ben and Kathy. IID?
Matt's on for IID.
Thanks, Matt. Lone Star? LADWP?
Glenn Berry for LA.
Thanks, Glenn. Los Alamos? Modesto?
Toxie Barris for Modesto.
Thanks, Toxie. Montana, Alberta, Thailand? Naturaner?
Hey, good afternoon, Michelle. Jeff Rayfeld on.
Thanks, Jeff. Northwestern?
Yeah, Casey's on for Northwestern.
Thanks, Casey. NV Energy? Pacificor? Pacific Gas and Electric?
Tom French.
Thanks, Tom. Portland General?
Corey McAllister.
Thanks, Corey. PNM? Puget? Salt River?
Chris Hoffman's on.
Thanks, Chris. Southern California Edison? San Diego Gas and Electric?
Robin, are you good?
Thanks, Robin. Seattle City Light?
This is Pablo Krupa, Seattle City Light.
Thanks, Pablo. Silicon Valley? Mud? Nahomish? Tacoma?
This is John Manberg with Tacoma Power.
Thanks, John. Trans Bay? Tri-State?
Keith Carmen, Tri-State G&T.
Thanks, Keith. TID?
Yeah, this is Joe Gill with CIDI.
Thank you. Valley Electric? And WAPA. All right, let's see here. Looks like we don't quite have quorum. Has anyone else joined?
Mike Magruder with Vista.
Thanks, Mike.
Rebecca Michelle, Johnson let me- with WAPA. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Michelle, let me check to see if anybody's on the participant line real quick. If there are any members that are logged into the participant line and not the speaker line, if you can raise your hand, because I think I see something on.
Yeah, whoever that was, I can't hear you.
This is Brian Pauling, HTC.
Thanks, Brian.
So if there are any members on the participant line, press pound 2. I see Sanase on.
Okay.
Already, I have 2 that have raised their hands. I can go ahead and unmute them, and they should be able to talk for the remainder of the call, even if they're on the participant side. But once you move over to the non-public.
Should dial back in. Thank you, Ethan.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and unmute them now. They should all be unmuted. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Yeah,
Kathy
this is Tony Edison with Southern California Edison.
Thanks, Tony and Kathy.
We did have a third raise their hand as well.
Valley Electric is on. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, we do have a quorum now, so that's good. All right. So we can then move into the committee business. And the first item of business is the decisional item for the chair and vice chair. So you'll recall that we put out a call for nominations. The nominations we received were for Ben Brandt for the chair. Ben comes to us from Idaho Power, and Chris Hoffman from Salt River as the vice chair. Are there any other additional nominations from the floor? All right, hearing none, then I'll call for a motion to elect Ben Brandt as chair and Chris Hoffman as vice chair.
Michelle, am I correct?
Tri-State, I'll make that motion.
All right, I think I heard Keith as the motion. Somebody else was speaking. Is that a second? Who was that?
This is Brian Pauling. I want to confirm that the nominations, should they be elected, they are willing to serve.
I'm sorry, I missed that. They're both what?
Are they both willing to serve?
Oh, yes. They're both willing to serve.
Perfect. This is Brian Pauling, making the second today motion.
Great. Is there any discussion? All right, so I'm going to go through a roll call vote of everyone that I marked as in attendance, and then we'll see if anyone else joins. So Avista?
Approved.
Thank you. Avangrid?
Approved.
BPA votes to approve. CAISO BA?
Approved.
Sanafe? Grant?
Approved.
All right. Hetchy?
Approved.
All right. Idaho?
Seems odd for me to vote.
Do you want to abstain? You can abstain if you want.
I'll approve.
All right. IID?
Approved.
LA?
Approved.
Modesto?
Approved.
Naturenter?
Approved.
Northwestern?
Approved.
Pacificor?
Approved.
Pacific Gas and Electric?
Approved.
Okay. Portland General?
Approved.
Okay. PNM? Oh, no, PNM wasn't there. Salt River?
I don't think Chris can do it, so I'll do it on behalf. Matt Liddon, Salt River approves.
Okay. Southern California Edison? Tony, are you still there? San Diego Gas and Electric?
Approved.
All right. Seattle City Light?
Approved.
Okay. Tacoma?
Approved.
Tri-State?
Approved.
Turlock?
Approved.
Valley Electric?
Approved.
All right. And WAPA? Approved. All right, great. So that motion passes, and we have a new chair and vice chair. Their terms start in June, so I'll wrap up this meeting, and then we will move forward. I am looking at the chat. The term for these positions is a 2-year term, and hopefully we didn't lose audio. Can somebody confirm you can still hear?
Yep, we can hear you, Michelle.
Okay.
Yep, we hear you.
All right, great. So let's move on to, first of all, congratulations to you, Ben and Chris, and then we can move on to the finance update. April?
Okay. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, we hear you.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I'll just go over a couple of highlights for finance. General updates, we have no new RC West customers right now, and there are no financial adjustments necessary for the 2020 RC services charge. We do have some resources out on the website that you all have access to should you need to know what the GMC charge rates are or what the RC charge rate is. You can go out to the caliso.com site. The link is provided. We also have an RC West payment calendar. That's a 10-year calendar. It gives you a really nice snapshot of when the billing volumes are due all the way to when your invoices are due for that service year. And finally, we also offer a computer-based training module for you. Now, this module is convenient because it not only goes over how folks could upload their net energy load or net generation load or net generation volumes, but it also goes over how you can access the MRIS application itself, review your RC and HANA publication statuses, and also review your statements and invoices. Moving on. I do want to let you all know that we will be going into the 2021 GMC revenue requirement process in July. That process is the basis of what the RC service charges are going to be or how they're going to be assessed. We have a stakeholder meeting kicking off in July. We'll do our internal budget process between July and October. We'll go ahead and present a draft of that budget to our board for their review and consideration. We'll have a follow-up stakeholder call in November, and then the board will decide on the final version of it going into December 2020, mid-December, and the rates would be posted for 2021 at the tail end of December. And then all of the rates moving forward, not only the grid management charges, but also the RC charges would be in effect as of January 1. And the next slide. The 2021 billing volumes will be opened in September of 2020. We'll be using the 2019 net energy for load and net generation volumes to go ahead and assess that 2021 RC service charge. The portal opens on 9/1. You have between 9/1 and 9/30 to enter those volumes. We'll go ahead and publish our information statements on October 30th, and that'll provide you a month to review the data that we've collected in the MRIS portal that identifies the volumes that you're submitting. The deadline to validate your volumes is November 30th, and then we'll use the volumes that are in the system as of November 30th to assess your 2021 RC services charges. For all entities, with the exception of federal entities, payments for those 2021 service charges are going to be due February 3rd of 2021. That's all I have, and I thank you.
All right, thanks. Are there any questions for April? All right, hearing none, I think we move on to the operations update. So, Tim, you want to take this?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things. Next slide, please. A couple items here just to update you on. First thing, we had an oscillation event on April 28th. This has gained some attention, so I just wanted to update you on it. It was a band 3 oscillation, lasted about 10 minutes. Both RC West and BPA detected it immediately, and also through the software available, identified the unit, which is boundary unit G55. Turns out that the GOP was contacted, and they had high bus voltage, and they had moved to lower the voltage, and the controller got stuck. So to get out of the oscillation, rather than take the unit off, they just reset the voltage controller, which stopped the oscillation. So it's a very good, I thought it was a very well-coordinated event between BPA and RC West. I was very happy that we were able to detect it immediately through our RTDMS software, and BPA also noticed it via a sudden change in their AGC, and they also had software indications as well. And this has gained a little bit of attention on a nationwide basis due to the February 2019 event that the Eastern Interconnection had, an oscillation event, which was they had trouble detecting, they had trouble identifying, and was eventually resolved by the GOP operator noticing his unit was behaving unusually and took it offline and stopped the oscillation. So we actually plan on presenting this event to some working groups within NERC and the Operation Reliability Subcommittee in the near future. So that's something that is definitely gained wide visibility, and oscillations have taken on added interest since the Eastern event last year. Of course, we've had more experience with those, and my understanding is in the West here, so we will be able to share some of our operational procedures we've developed, and some of our software we're using for monitoring it. Any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, we can go to COVID. Go ahead.
Tim, it's Keith Carmen, Tri-State. So what unit did you say that was associated with? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
That was boundary G55.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Okay. Going forward on the COVID-19, just first off, none of our ISO, BA, or RC staff have been diagnosed with a novel coronavirus or COVID-19. Also, we have not had antibody or testing available for the virus as well. But we did take a number of operating measures and in an operating posture. So if we go to the next slide, please. A couple things we did. We had changed to a 5-week rotation. This gave us some more flexibility to manage any lost staff we had if we had a diagnosis. So we were pre-positioned ourselves for that. Another thing we did was previously, of course, everybody knows we have 2 control rooms here at RC West Lincoln and Folsom. Normally the staff rotates between those 2 control rooms. Since early March, we've actually isolated, we split the crews in half, and we put half of them in Lincoln and half of them in Folsom. They don't rotate, so we sort of stopped any interaction we'd have between control room staff. So that way, if we had a contaminated, or if we had an infected individual get into the control room, we wouldn't have the risk of infecting a larger portion of the staff. So we did that as well. We limited the access to the control rooms to just the RCs and the BA operations staff. We do allow IT to get in there for priority hardware items as a necessity. We also have some cleaning staff that goes in there and routinely cleans and does deep cleanings. Before anybody enters the control rooms, they do, including the operators, we have a health check. And basically that's just a temperature check. A lot of them are doing it at home now before they come to work, and they also do it at work when they enter. So we are looking for some low-grade fevers if they're present. So we do that, and we have guidelines set up for that. So that's really our current operating posture. Some other things we've done is we've developed a 6-step RC reduced staffing plan. So as we lose, or if we were to lose RC staff to diagnosis or direct contacts where we have to quarantine them and can't allow them to work, we have a plan for reduce and how we would operate going forward for that. Basically, that's reducing down into a 4-week rotation, potentially dropping an RC off of each rotation, as well as potentially declaring an RMO, and also maybe sequestering. One of the things we did develop was converted our simulation room into a 3rd control room. This gave us flexibility. We thought if we had a control room that became contaminated, we would have to go through deep cleaning. We would be able to move staff into the other control room if possible, and still operate with 2 control rooms. So we have a 3rd control room that's sitting deep cleaned and ready to go. And also, we also developed our trainings being held remotely, so that's been going very well. We've been doing this for a number of weeks. And then also we developed a sequester plan that we would have if we had to get to the point where we would have to sequester our operators. And then currently, so that's where we're at today. We feel like we can go like this indefinitely. And then if we go to the next slide, please. So right now we're coordinating with the California ISO general staff on their return to work plan. That's projected for June 1st, although that could change. So during that repopulating of the business wing, that's expected to take 3 to 4 weeks. They'll be bringing staff in slowly, so bring 20% of the staff for 1 week, and then 30, and then 30, or something like that going forward. We do believe we'll have a number of staff that are going to stay home due to either they're high risk for the summer, they'll stay home and work remotely for the summer, or they're either high risk or they have child care or adult care considerations that need to be worked out. So since May 16th, we've been, ISO's had roughly 500 people working from home remotely. It's been going very well. We feel very productive. So I think that's good. It's giving us good practice. So we do feel we can continue operating like this for quite some time. And in fact, we will continue with the control room access restrictions as we have in place now. But we will continue to to train remotely, and we're going to continue the health screening as we are now. And we plan to do this until probably there's either a vaccine administered, developed administered, or herd immunity is known. So we think we'll be in this operating posture probably until 2021 sometime. You know, it's hard to say what's going to happen. You know, there is protected second and third wave, so we're positioned for that going forward, and we don't see us really reducing our posture at all until there's been a substantial progress made in regards to a vaccine and general health or protection for our operators. Any questions on that? Okay. We go to the next slide. Okay, procedures update. We have a number of procedures here that we have 2 procedures that are scheduled to publish, the RC restoration plan and attachments. We just went through that, really cleaned up the procedure, changed from CAISO RC to RC West many places, and we also made some adjustments to the RC checklist, really just some more checks for allowing TOPs to synchronize together again. We just sort of added a little bit of rigor to that. Also, RC 650 for Mod 33 is also scheduled to publish on May 12th. Recently, we published a number of procedures. These are all minor changes in all these, and mostly, for the most part, all of them are just changing CAISO RC to RC West in the procedure. Some grammar corrections, that type of thing, but no real material changes to the procedures themselves. The PATH 61, Lugo, Victorville, I-roll changes, we did have a change in that in regards to a contingency that was a qualifying contingency for that IR well that was vetted with the impacted parties and approved. And lastly, we have a number of procedures that are planned for Q2 review. One of the things we've mentioned before, and we mentioned this in the RTWG as well, is that over the last year or two, we've developed a lot of procedures, and a lot of them are on a 3-year review cycle. So we don't want to have a balloon year where we have to approve all our procedures. So we're trying to work on developing a schedule for those reviews so that we can have a really very consistent review process, and we don't have a balloon year where we have to do a bunch of procedures at once. So we're working on that and trying to get those levelized so the workload is levelized over the 3-year cycle as well. Any questions on any of that? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Tim. So this is Rachel Lucas. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Rachel.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. So I'm going to be presenting the RC metrics update for the 2020 data. We're baselining the data, and we have our Q1 data. So the slide presented is first on state estimator quality. So what we're showing here is the residual error, the megawatt flow on both the 500 kV as well as the 345 and 230 kV lines. So for the 500 kV, we're seeing a significant improvement here, but we're looking to see how this data progresses throughout the end of the year so we can baseline for 2020. Next slide, please. So for this metric, it is also state estimator quality, but it's based on the megavar flow. So we're looking at voltage instead for both the 500 kV as well as the 345 and 230 kV facilities. We're observing some improvement, but we anticipate to see how these graphs change throughout the year. Any questions before I move on? Okay, this next metric is regarding DACA accuracy. So DACA is our day-ahead contingency analysis tool. We use it to identify potential contingencies in the day-ahead time frame for our next day study. So you can see on the graph here, we have the blue as not observed in the day-ahead time frame, but we saw it in real time. the green is observed in day ahead and showed up in real time. And then to total to 100%, we have the gray, which shows that it was observed in the day ahead, but we didn't see it in real time. Any questions on this one? All right, so the next metric is regarding RTCA non-converged contingencies. This is a count of the non-converged contingencies in 5-minute intervals. We're averaging close to 9 non-converged contingencies every run. We have this count average per month shown here. And just a note that over 8,500 contingencies are solved in each RTCA run. Any thoughts or comments before I move on? Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Ginger for the next metric.
Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. This is Ginger Quintavala. I wanted to provide some information to you guys around the CIDI tickets and some of the resolution information that has come out of that. If you take a look at the slide, you'll see we broke down the opened and closed, and I want it to be clear that the information that you're seeing here, the number of tickets we opened in January, approximately around 85 tickets, and in January we closed about 70. So what I want everyone to understand with looking at this data, that you can see we had our highest month so far of tickets that were submitted, which was in January, and we didn't obviously answer all those tickets, but we had a huge amount of tickets that got closed in February. So we had a lot going on in January. We were able to get to a lot more tickets in February. And as you kind of see, that continues. The bar at the bottom, which is the average days to close, and you can see in January it's just under about 10 days, and then as you see it drops down to March to almost 0, and then it goes up a little bit in April. I wanted to give you a little bit more information about this data with the average days to close. A ticket, when it's submitted to us, can go through a lot of processes where we get the ticket, we're looking at it, we're analyzing, we're potentially sending it to SMEs, we're doing analysis, there could be a defect related to that. We could be going back to you to ask for additional information. And then once we get that ticket resolved, we also submit it back and ask for you to validate the answer and make sure it was looking the way you wanted it to. So we've been doing a lot of tweaking with this data to make sure that the average days to close is more reflective of what you as a customer would want to know from us. So you're probably most interested in the amount of time the ticket has spent with us. So that's what we're looking to do. I'm sorry, does someone have a question? Okay, so we're tweaking this data, and I know that you can see we got less tickets in March. We obviously answered them quicker. But what I want to make you aware of is that when we do the next set of data, we're going to be changing some of that underlying criteria. We're going to be removing some data and adding some data back in, meaning we currently were counting in when that ticket had been sent back to you if we need additional information. We don't want to include that anymore. We also weren't including the full duration of if something was opened as a defect on our side, and we do want to include that to be more representative. So we cannot backdate that information, but we're working on changing that underlying data, so going forward, the data will be a little bit more accurate. Any questions on this?
Regarding polling, this is a quick question, whether there's an ability to actually track both the time that is spent with you as well as the time for the full cycle of closing the ticket. So could you have both lines on the chart?
That is possible. I don't want to say I'd have to develop that. It is very complicated because the way that Salesforce, which is the product that we use for CIDI, the way it works is it has to start the minute that ticket is open, and every time that ticket moves or changes statuses, it looks for that criteria to add to that information. So that's something I will absolutely look into developing to give both of those that data. I just don't know when I'll be able to do that, but I will look into that. I will definitely have an update for you on that.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, and on the next slide, we could move to the next slide, please.
I think it's just a delay, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you. So I want to, We also realized there was a issue that had arose in one of the working group meetings, and we wanted to put a solution in for that, where we had a little confusion between a city ticket being opened and items that were brought to the working group. So we have worked internally with all of the liaisons that manage each of the RT working groups, and we've created some new tools internally to help them. So what you see on the slide, the top are each of the working groups with a liaison listed below that working group. And then what we have done within the CIDI system is created each of the liaisons or each working group with a special queue. And what this means is currently today, each of these liaisons are looking at they're getting reports every day on the tickets that are currently open, and they've been using those to, follow up with issues, make sure things are getting resolved. What we also wanted to do was provide them another layer of visibility. And what we can do with tickets now is we can flag them for that working group. What this means is, to give you an example, is let's say a bunch of tickets came in for an issue, and they came into, say, my group, which is customer experience, so a client rep read them, and they knew the answer, and they answered all the tickets, and we had 6 or 8 of them come in, and they answered each one of the tickets. Well, the liaison wouldn't necessarily realize that 6 of those tickets had come in, and this might be a larger issue that they need to address. And that was the issue we're previously having. So now what we can do is we can flag those tickets and identify those to say, even though the ticket has been closed, we still want the liaison to be aware of this so they can look at that from a larger issue, and it might be something they want to bring up in the working group. Or maybe something comes up in the working group that is already a closed ticket, but they want to keep it on their radar. They can also go in and set that flag. So that flag is now independent of whether a ticket is open or closed. It's simply a flag that also includes closed tickets if the liaison would like that. So they have a global picture to items that should be potentially brought up in a working group. So it gives them a lot more visibility, and they're not just looking at open tickets, they're looking at all tickets and all issues. And anyone in the company can flag a ticket. Even if they close the issue very quickly, they can flag it so they have more visibility to each of those liaisons. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, well, thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon.
All right, so next up, I think that we have the working group updates, and it looks like Tim is going to kick that one off.
Ken, your line might be muted on your, there you go.
You hear me? Thank you. Okay, so on our working groups, a couple things, just talking points here. We've talked consistently about our COVID-19 operating posture with your groups. For a while there, we were doing, as the breakout was happening, we were meeting every month or every week, to discuss any changes we had in our operating posture, anything we saw coming, that type of thing. So that happened virtually through most of the months of March and April, and then now that we're sort of in the solid operating posture, we're going back to our monthly meetings that way. Of course, we can call an ad hoc meeting anytime we want. For example, if we decide all of a sudden we wanted to sequester, we would call a meeting to notify of that. We did review the RC metrics with the working group quite a bit, had some questions, got some good feedback. We also did this jointly with the OPWG as well. So we had 2 or 3 agenda items related to the metrics, and we've been reviewing the monthly data and quarterly data as we've been developing it. One of the things you'll hear about a little bit later, but we've been doing the procedure updates and talking about those. One of the more significant items has been the San Diego I-roll retirement. So you'll hear more about that in a future topic here. But we held joint meetings about that, discussed it, and went through the process that we developed to do it and then retire it, and the agreement we got for doing that. Then also, if we go to the next slide, please. We've developed, I got it. Yep, okay. That's correct. Yeah, we've developed an ad hoc task force to work on, actually back one slide up, please.
There you go.
Okay. we've developed a task force to develop our wide area view situational awareness, WAVSA task force. And this is for, the intent of this task force is to provide a consistent platform to share overview and custom displays. We're not going to be replicating RC displays or one-line displays that are available in HANA, although we may make the RC displays available that the RCs themselves use available to the platform. The task force is comprised of RC members, so members from the stakeholder group, as well as RC operational and RC West IT staff. So we have a team of about 7 altogether. We have 3 representatives from the BAs and TOPs, and we have 4 from RC West, 2 from operational, and 2 from IT. And one of those is a display builder, so we'll be able to build those. The deliverable for this task force is to develop a long-term, develop an initial display set, so we're looking at our initial displays, then also but to develop a long-term process to manage those displays, the review and the building of them. We don't want to have, and many of us have fought this problem in various stages of our careers where an operator wants a display and he mocks it up and they build it, and then a different operator wants it a different way. So they build up another display that shows all the same information. Now you have 2 displays that you have to maintain. So we want to really try to minimize that to the degree possible. And my internet connection just dropped out. All right, you can go to the next slide, please. I get it rebooted here. So we held a kickoff on May 4th, and sort of got the process going. Right now we're making sure that all the task members have access to PiVision. We're working on an initial display set, so each of the RC participants is developing a display mock-up. We're going to build that display, and then we're going to look at any standardization we need to implement in the displays. One of the things we're concerned about is developing functionality that's very difficult to support, like linking procedures to displays that have to have procedures embedded in an EMS system somewhere so they can be hyperlinked. So that's one of the things we're looking at as well. And then our next meeting, I believe, is May 18th. So we'll be looking at the initial display sets and then moving forward on that. Any questions regarding WAVSA or operational items in RTWG? Okay, I think that's it.
Hey, Didi, are you on?
Yes, I am. Christina, would you mind helping me with the slide for me, please? So,
not at all.
My name is Didi Subakti, currently reporting for the OPWG, which is the Operations Planning Working Group. I'd like to share 2 activities that's been going on in the OPWG, and just like a summary of the 2 activities, and then also the upcoming activity that we are thinking about doing. So the first one is about the retirement of San Diego IROL, and the second one with regards to the PRC-12 task force. So I have a more detailed slide, kind of like a summary of the retirement of San Diego IROL as well as the PRC-12. So let's go to the next slide and just dive right in. San Diego IROL is basically a voltage stability IROL that we've had in the San Diego, Tennessee, Pacific Southwest area. So that has been in there for quite some time, and it's been identified for quite some time in there. Since the identifications and everything that has changed, the San Diego, Southern California Edison, and California ISOs, the TOP area, they've actually get together with the planning coordinators, which is California ISOs, and they've installed what they call the Orange County, San Diego's reactive power project. And what they've done is they installed synchronous condensers in 3 in San Diego, 1 in San Onofre, 2 in San Luis Rey, 2 in Talega, 2 in Miguel. And each one of the synchronous condenser is worth 225 megavar. So as you can imagine, if you add up all those synchronous condensers, there's at least, thousand and thousand megavar that's actually being installed as a synchronous condensers. They also have a new Suncrest SVC, so which is basically, you probably heard about the Lone Star TOP within the California ISO footprint. That's the new SVC that they operate, and that's another additional 300 megavar capacitors that is in there. 230 kV line, 500 kV line, the new combined cycle unit, and the phase shifters in the Imperial Carolina Rosita. So basically, what happened is it's been a work of planning for quite some time, and we've actually started this process of reviewing this back in the peak RT time frame and all the way to now. So the 2020 summer assessment result is coordinated. If you go to the next slide, I'll share a little bit of that. In the slide 28, we did summer assessment result coordinated with the Pacific Southwest entity, and it's basically, we're following the SOL methodology, right? We have an SOL methodology that is in there, and the IROL is defined, and basically looking at the fact that observing historical import limits and looking at what the study says. And basically the study says that, we have so much reactive power reserve right now, so then the thermal becomes limiting element. So the thermal limiting element occurs at the 3300 import, and they did a cascading test, and there is no voltage stability limitations anymore after all those reactive powers and synchronous condenser and SVC that's being installed in there. If you actually ignore any of the thermal, you'll get into this 4,000, which is a very high number that is in there. So the conclusions with the study group and the working groups is actually to basically there's no IROL established for this anymore, and we will be retiring procedures 9140 and 9150. And the California ISO BA and the TOP with San Diego's would have to update their procedures to reflect the limitations and monitoring of the thermal conditions that now is going to be the most limiting element in there. So this is one of the very few, I guess, new process for us to follow our SOL and IRO methodology to both, review our IROL condition, and this was done with all the impacted party in the Pacific Southwest area. So that's one. I would like to go, maybe I'll go to the next item, which is the PRC-12. Many of you have heard about this, PRC-12. PRC-12 is actually going to impact everybody. So impact all the BA and TOP within Northern America, and specifically here in the WAC region, because we have a lot of remedial action schemes. So RAS, remedial action scheme, it's actually a new process that comes out through a FERC-approved process in here. So the FERC-approved process for the PRC-12 is going to take into effect next year, and the RC West currently has been coordinating with other RC, with SPP, Alberta, and BC Hydro to the WAC RAS-RS Reliability Subcommittee. RAS that's now actually changed to WAC RAS Review Subcommittee. So we have a new process that is consolidated with the other WAC RAS-RS, coordinated with other RCs as well. And currently in the 2020, we're actually kind of like a transition. So we have this new task force basically, and for the interim process right now, the submission of the RAS is somewhat transitioning, and we are currently using this ISORC@kaiso.com. So many of you, if you have RAS, your RAS-RS entity or your working group people or a task force has been informed of this. So the permanent process currently is being developed via this task force for the PRC-12. So let me give you a task force status. So if you go to the slide 30, a quick status where we are. It's basically what we do is we have three new procedures. RC procedure 690 with the two attachments, 960A and 906B. They are actually currently in the review and the discussions and commenting period. So the next step of this is that we would post the draft proposed checklist. This is actually a work that is being or jointly developed between the DE, the Data Exchange Working Group, and the OP working group because of the fact that there is an operations planning access points on this, but there is also a data exchange with regard to making sure that the data for RAS is maintained as confidential as it normally is and as required to be. The draft available for comment period is for until May 18, and then we would have a next TRC-12 webinar to detail the next one that is in there. So those are the two items that is in there. I would stop first to see if there's any questions with regard to the two current status on the OPWG. Okay, I would like to go to the next slide to talk about potential work for future work for OPWG. As Ginger mentioned, Ginger's team, well, Ginger and I have been working on the CIDI ticket, the process for the CIDI ticket, and reviewing questions and answers and all those other stuff. So one of the things that I noticed is that we actually seen questions with regards to outages. So for example, people are asking the questions is like, why does outages needs to be approved? How long does outage studies process? What is the process for the long-term outages? What do you do with ambient D rate? What do you do with generations that is less than 50 megawatts? So I have a lot of these questions with regards to the outage coordinations. I also see a lot of questions about OPA. OPA process. I don't see that much questions about the SOM methodology, but I figured that, well, you know what, let's just throw everything in there. And the reasons why I wanted to have this review is because of really we are coming up our year anniversary on July 1 for our RCOS. If you recall that many of us actually work on this RC 610, 620, 630 and get this thing done before the July 1 cutover for the RC. So that is actually coming up pretty soon as our first year anniversary. So I thought that, well, it might be best for us to do an annual review for our SOM methodology, OPA process, and outage coordination process. So what I'd like to ask is for the executive teams to basically goes back to your original people, if they're still around, that's helping us with the task force with SOM methodology, OPA process, and coordination process, to be ready because we will be reaching out to them to recreate or to use the OPWG to actually do an annual review and update. And we will be looking at the CIDI ticket, the question that has always been asked about, what does it mean for outages, how does it mean to day heads, what does it mean for this SOM methodology, to bring it up in the working group level. I think it will be good to have the working group discuss all these challenges or all these questions in the working group level. Specifically, a lot of the questions that I see is quite a bit of a technical analysis that is in there. So that's coming up in there, and be looking out for a notice from us. That's all the update for the OPWG. Christina, back to you. Unless there's a question, I guess. Sorry.
Okay. Any questions for Didi? Okay, Tricia, are you on?
Yes, I am. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So for the data exchange working group update since the last meeting, we have been working on another update for the guidance document related to the IR10 specification and added a new proposed request item to the specification itself. We have just finished a comment period. We actually received quite a few comments back, which were really, really helpful, actually really some good, detailed technical comments. Also some comments around the proposed effective dates. And so I think as we consolidate all those comments, we are going to repost the draft actually for another comment period. It's definitely worthwhile to make sure that we captured everybody's concerns. So, and the proposed effective date on this new request item for 625 on the dynamic model for transient stability analysis would likely be pushed out to the future. We've had requests to look to push it out towards the end of the year or for January 1st, 2021. So that we'll definitely have some more discussion with that within the working group level, but we really appreciate everybody's participation in that process and the attention to the posted draft. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And then related to the model process updates, the monthly network model process is working really well. We're on about a 5-week release cycle right now, which has been going very smoothly. March and April models were very successful. One of the things that the team is working on is making sure, as Ginger had mentioned, we're mining data from the city tickets and all the various kind of questions and inquiries that have come in from various sources, and we're going back through all our related documentation to make sure timelines are clear, the tools that are to be used for submission of model information or for posting on the portal, that all that guidance is clear. Templates, we've developed new templates and kind of clarified some existing templates, and also are providing more clarifications around scoping. So these changes and clarifications are being discussed through the data exchange working group, but we're also looking to put together more kind of supplemental training materials, and so there's more information going on that. But we really appreciate everybody's participation in that and giving good feedback, because it's very hard to come up with that one-size-fits-all, because not everybody does their modeling process exactly the same way. All model process changes are coming in through the RIMS tool, so all customers are submitting changes in that way, which is helpful to have all those funneled through a common method. And we are working on some of the model validation processes, potentially with our vendors, to see if we can continue to help improve the model quality. So it just kind of continues to get better, and then it's quicker actually to get through our testing processes as well. Just a reminder for everyone. Oh, go ahead.
Quick question. So it seems like, this is John Rivers, Tacoma Power. So it seems like as the model has continued to improve, I think there still needs to be some transparency in how the RC part of the model works with the market part of the model, and where there's things that you do for reliability versus how things that you do for market, how those kind of have to mesh together. Is there workshops or something that we could do that would give people better ideas of how that model is working? I feel like that's something that people are still sorting through.
Okay, I really appreciate the feedback. We can definitely discuss that. One of the things I know that we received feedback on early on is we tried to keep the market portion of the discussion out of the reliability coordinator portion of the discussion, because we know not everybody does both. But I think we can address it either way, whether it's through the RC working group or actually through the market modeling side of it. So yes, definitely. Made a note of that. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tricia, it's Ginger. Can I just add something real quick?
Sure.
So just to let everybody know, as the model process has been improving and we've got more solidified, we're going to be sending out a survey probably end of this week, beginning of next week. We're going to be asking about how you've been using the communications we have been sending. So it's a real short survey, it's just a couple questions, and we're just looking to see the communications we've been sending around the RIMS targeted and the market notices, those are good for your business. So just to let you know, that's going to be coming really soon. We'd appreciate your feedback. Thanks, Tricia.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Ginger. That's very timely. Also a reminder, because we have received some inquiries about this, the Western Interconnection Model Library on the RC portal, that's where we're posting all of the published model files. So all of the outputs from the modeling process, and there's an ICCP library where we post the available points list. some customers had previously been using other processes to retrieve published model data through Excellion and other sources, and so we've been trying to, clarify through CIDI ticket process and through other applications that all of those published model files should be through that library. And so as Ginger was talking about with the communications that go out, so when a model publishes, we send out the communications to our data exchange working group and our rooms contacts, and I think we actually also added the modeling contacts as well because we refined the contact list within the portal. If those aren't hitting the correct audiences, that would be good feedback, back as part of that survey. The other thing is your users can also go in and subscribe to the library for document updates. So they can kind of self-subscribe and set the frequency on when they receive those updates, whether it's as changes happen, once a day, once a week, however that would best work for them. But that is the central place for that now. And then the last piece, I think we've got Ankit on the line. I don't know if he's prepared to talk, but around the solution, actually, if you go back one slide, just on the last bullet here, on the solution quality and the model data validation. So what part of what we're working through here is, it's a lot of it's based on the feedback we get back from the customers with each model about things that we're seeing, things that need to be fixed, new inputs for the next model. We're also looking at how these are tracking with the RC metrics and see what correlations we're seeing in these areas. So as we've mentioned before, this is our baseline year for building out those metrics, but anywhere where we're able to use those indications to show us where in the model we can continue to tune and tighten up, we're trying to take advantage of those items. So, and I know Ankit's the next speaker up on the HANA part, so I don't know if Ankit has anything else to add on the model process before he jumps into HANA.
Yeah, hi Tricia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you for giving me a segue into this topic. Yes, absolutely right. So we are paying a significant amount of attention on the solution quality, and of course the solution quality is a result of the network model information and the ICCP data that our applications are using. We have several funnels from where we are getting and collecting information on issues in the solution quality. Of course, our customers, as they are reviewing the HANA results, they are providing us good feedback on some issues that they are observing. But in addition to that, we have our own internal metrics and tracking of the solution quality. Some of it is reflected in the RC metrics, but in addition to that, our CISO internal metrics are suggesting some areas where we have scope of improvement. So this is something which is a systematic approach of getting the solution quality improved, and the same is reflected in the metrics that were presented earlier. We are seeing improving trends in the solution quality, and we continue to do that as an ongoing process. So in future monthly network model updates, we continue to see progress in the solution quality metrics. So I think that process is working really well, and we're getting a lot of good feedback and support from our customers as well. Is there anything else, Tricia, that you would want to cover on this slide?
No, that's it. Are there any questions?
Maybe not a question, but just acknowledging that that's a great place to keep our focus, and we really appreciate both that we're taking metrics on it, and then we're continuing to keep that focus on getting the model cleaned up. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, so just go ahead on your HANA update. Perfect.
Okay, sure. So the HANA CPG is a customer partnerships group that has been set up to discuss ongoing topics in the HANA domain as well as issues and other concerns. We have had a few meetings so far. We are meeting on a monthly basis. These HANA CPGs, my take on it is working really well.
we get good participation and feedback on the application. There are basically three different aspects of the HANA CPG meeting. The first aspect is just to give and exchange status updates on the changes that have been recently implemented in the HANA domain from CISO, and also to collect open feedback from the customers in the usage of HANA and any issues and concerns that they have. This is in addition to the CIDI tickets. We do have a running list of CIDI tickets. We open up the list of CIDI tickets, we review the things that are in CISO code for evaluation, and if there are any questions or discussions needed, that happens. But in addition to that, we have a couple of buckets which fall under defects category, where we know that the application is not working correctly, and we have an open variance with our software vendor. So we go through those and assess the impact and priority of those defects. And the third category is the enhancement category, where we are also getting a lot of good feedback from the customers and CIDI tickets on things that should be enhanced in the HANA domain. These could be things that are coming purely from the vendor in the HANA application, or some other aspects of HANA which are under our CIDI's control, say the setting up of ICCP points, etc. So we bring up those and we prioritize those enhancements. So far, the experience on that process is that because users are not intimately familiar with the HANA application yet, CISO is going to propose a prioritization of these enhancements as a proposed sequence in which we want to hit these enhancements. And if there is feedback from HANA CPG members on reprioritization or any other enhancements that they are seeking in the application, we introduce that to the queue. So I'm hoping that the current set of people who are involved in HANA CPG are seeing some value in it, and if there are other potential members who would want to be involved in the CPG, I'm hoping that we'll be able to pass that word around to them so that they can participate and give us all the good feedback. That's all I have on HANA CPG. Are there any questions or comments? All right, back to you, Christina.
Thank you. All right, Tricia, Training Working Group.
Okay, go ahead and advance the slide. Okay, so we had the quarterly group last week, and we talked about the impacts of COVID-19 and how we've had to adjust the restoration drill dates for this year. So probably least impact was to Area A because of the summer, so we just shifted those out a little bit. Southwest Area B is moved out to the September-October timeframe, and then Area C also September-October. So the trainers, we had sent out a survey to get feedback on, you know, kind of how everybody was doing with their remote training setups and to make sure that they would be able to accommodate the shifts. We've also been working with the trainers in the brick simulation scenarios. We've had really good participation on that. So we've continued to prepare even though the dates had shifted out. So we think even if we're still not just remote training for us, we know for sure we will be, but if everybody's training that period of time, we think that the dates will still be good for the second part of the year. On the 2020 GOP restoration exercises, we did complete one tabletop exercise in March, and we've got another one coming up on September 9th. That is an adjusted date. I think the original date was September 16th, and we needed to move it up so it wouldn't conflict with the new Southwest Area B drill. So those have been good exercises. They're GOP specific. We've been communicating that if the GOPs attend this, that it fulfills their requirement. They don't need to attend the RC's drill. The feedback that we've received is that attending the RC's drill, there isn't much for the GOPs to do. And so this is very tailored to, what is the role of the GOP in the restoration process. And a lot of the COP trainers also participate and help support the discussion. And we continue to seek feedback if there are other things that we can do to make that more interesting and engaging for the GOPs. That's always good. We spoke with trainers about the 2021 restoration exercises, trying to get something on the calendar now, received some initial feedback around DISTAC and some of the other planned dates coming up in the February-March timeframe. And so we're sending out a survey to kind of confirm the dates, but we think we are going to try and get those done in Q1 of 2021. And then that way we're less impacted by, other schedule or challenges throughout the rest of the year. We also put it out to the trainers to ask if there are additional training topics that they would like the RC to offer. And we've also, as part of that survey, asking if your trainers have any kind of train-the-trainer type content that they would like to share with us. When we went through the startup period in 2018, 2019, a lot of your operations and training teams were really good about coming and spending time with our reliability coordinators to describe, what your operational challenges are and help them get familiar with your areas. We were hoping to continue some of that this year with site visits and things, and obviously we aren't doing any traveling. But we've asked, hey, trainers, if you're doing sessions for your operators where you're talking about, challenges for the upcoming season or, particular operational things that you think might be engaging for the RC, we can have our training staff attend or listen in or meet separately, and then potentially we can also offer that to our reliability coordinators so that way they're aware of those concerns on the wider system. And I think that's it. I think it was one slide. Yes. Any questions on the training working group? Okay. Thanks, Christina. Sure. And these are just some reminders about the upcoming meetings for the working groups and the committee oversight, or the oversight committee, sorry. So these are for 2020. And the ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that are coming up. So just some reminders. And you'll find these out on the portal. And then we send out the Outlook invites to the working group members. And just a reminder, too, just to make sure that the right people are involved in these groups, they'll need to go out and update their information on the portal and the contacts. So Michelle, turn it over to you.
All right. So the next agenda item is to determine any agenda topics for the next public session. So other than the normal updates that we get from RC West, are there any topics that anyone wants to raise for that next meeting? All right. Hearing none, then at this point we'll continue to have the normal topics. The next item is just a brief announcement. So you'll recall in our charter that we have a regulatory liaison to the Oversight Committee. Previously it was Jordan White, and Commissioner Mary Throne from Wyoming has just been identified as the new regulatory liaison. Commissioner Throne has demonstrated a keen interest in understanding the importance of reliability coordination in the Western interconnection. And she will work closely with YRAB and YRAB staff to keep Western regulators informed on RC West activities and to provide advice to RC West from the states to ensure that we see the continued success of the RC function in the Western interconnection. So we want to welcome Commissioner Throne as our liaison.
I don't know if wants to say anything. If you want to say something, you can raise your hand by pressing #2. So Ethan, let me know if anybody enters the queue.
Alrighty, we do have one that entered the queue. I can go ahead and unmute them now.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Caller, you are now unmuted.
Oh, hi, this is Commissioner Throne. I just wanted to thank Michelle for that nice introduction. I look forward to participating indirectly in your calls as the liaison, and YRAB is, of course, pleased to see the work you're doing with the metrics, which, as I understand it, was a topic that our group was particularly interested in. So I look forward to meeting everybody in person some distant day in the future.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Throne. With that, we will be open for public comments. So we can go ahead and open up for public comment.
Sure. And if anybody has a question or a comment, you can raise your hand by pressing #2. So we'll just give it a few moments. Anybody in the queue, Ethan?
As of now, we have nobody in the question queue. But once again, pressing #2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question or say a comment. Looks like we still have no questions in queue at this time.
All right. Thank you, Ethan. So with that, then we will go ahead and
Michelle,
Michelle,
Keith, real quick, just one thing before we close up. I know we need to get wrapped up here. We've got another obligation here, but I just wanted to say thanks to you for chairing us through the inception. I think this is your last meeting, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yes, this is my last meeting as chair. I will continue to be a member, though, but I appreciate that, Keith.
Okay, yeah, I just want to say thanks. You did a great job leading us. You know, we worked through some difficult issues. We don't always agree, but at the end of the day, you led us down a good path for resolution. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Keith.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
It's been a pleasure working with you. This is Christina. I really enjoyed it over the past couple of years. So thank you for everything.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Christina. All right, well, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the public session, and we will go into executive session. So I think for those of you that are members that dialed into the speaker line, you can go ahead and stay on that line. I think there was a couple of you that had dialed into the participant line, so you'll need to hang up and dial into the speaker line. And there's a separate WebEx link for the executive session.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I just emailed it to you, the web link. It's also included in the meeting invite. So, Ethan, you can go ahead and disconnect the participant line. We greatly appreciate all that joined today. And also, you can turn off the meeting recording and disconnect the WebEx.
Alrighty, and with that, that concludes our public conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.